yesterday we turned it up. Hamad Bays. We're about a third of the line, a third of the page, the Amud down, and we're discussing a very interesting thing here that we're trying to determine. We're trying to determine how do we know that a sukkah has to be at a height of 10 tvachim. A sukkah has to be at a height of 10 tvachim. 10
columns.
Right. Oh, exactly. So just 1 second. We brought a raya from the Aron. The kaparis and the Aron were 10 tvachim, and that was a rishus. We would discuss it that Hashem didn't come into man rishus, and when we got to the top of the Aron, that was entering a new domain. So 10 tvachim we saw is a new domain. However, the Gemara asks a big shiloh here about third line. Umimai de chalala. It's like 2 words before the end of the line. Umimai de chalala. Umimai de chalala. Now the Gemara is asking, very nice. Okay, so you just umimai de chalala asara. How do we know that the hollow space of the sukkah is 10? Bar mischacha, aside from the schach on top. Meaning a sukkah has to have 10 tvachim of ear space. But the Gemara is asking, how do we know that a sukkah has to have 10 tvachim of ear space? Kama. Ema, let's say bahadi schacha, together with the schach it has to be 10 tvachim.
When did we say that?
Because we're learning from the...
No.
How do we know that?
Yeah,
the Gemara understands that 10 tvachim creates a dira, living area. In a living area, it needs to be livable. You can't have...
I'm saying,
right.
we assume there's 10 right.
Exactly, yeah. Ema, let us say... Dira Srucha. Yeah, the Gemara, very, very good. Ramon pointed out that when the Hutzim went into it, even though it wasn't a real layer of schach, but it created uncomfortable dwelling, and that wasn't good. So the Gemara says, Ema bahadi schacha, maybe together with the schach it would have to be. And we wrote yesterday, since we are learning from the height of the sukkah, from the kapayres, the height of the sukkah should include the covering.
The Aron,
because the Aron, right? The Aron with the kapayres was 10 tvachim. So the total has to be 10 tvachim, not just the ear space. So now the Gemara says, Ella, Rabbi said this, we're up to, but just follow along with the pencil because it's not a hard Gemara, but it's steps. Ella, the Gemara says, and I wrote on the side, the Gemara retracts and gives a new source for the height of a sukkah. Ella, you should know about. You can even write in Chaim's Gemara.
Ella is a retraction.
Right, yeah. Ella, the Gemara is retracting. Ella, the Gemara retracts, and we have a new source for the height of a sukkah. Mi beis aylamim. Ella mi beis aylamim. Ella mi beis aylamim gamarla. We're learning from the height. We're learning from the base of Mikdash. We're going to be learning the height of a sukkah mi beis aylamim from the base of Mikdash. The Chsev, as the pasuk says, "V'habayis asher bona hamelech Shlomo l'Hashem," and the house that Shlomo Melech built for Hashem. Now let's follow these measurements. Shishim ama arkai. It was 60 amos, its length. Avrami, there's one right over here on the table, Avrami. Right here, this big one. Shishim amos. We have a minute.
So far we've only had bad news coming from that phone text, so I don't matter from the box.
Can we get Yankee to call?
Shishim ama arkai.
Maybe you get on me.
The length of the sukkah is 60 amos in length. The esrim rachvoi, and the length of the base of Mikdash, and it was 20 amos wide. Ushloishim amo kaimasai, and it was 30 amos tall. Okay, 60 by 20 and a height of 30. The important the base of Mikdash. The important measurement that we need is the height, 30. Ksiv, and it says. Now, Rabbi Yehuda is onto this. He's not here with Yehuda Taib is onto this, and he has this is mamish. He has all the information here on the kruvim that Shlomo HaMelech built in the base of Mikdash, which were adjacent, which were next to the regular Aron. And this is what it says: Kaimas hakruv echad, the height of one kruv. You ready for this? Eser ba'ama was 10 amos. V'chein hakruv hasheni, and so the second kruv. He built a set of kruvim on the floor next to the aron. There were 10 amos, and Rabbi said, I want to add one point here, which will help simplify the Gemara.
10 or 11?
10. 10. Eser ba'ama, 10 amos. Now, this 10 amos, listen to this, to the head, to the top of the head. Eser ba'ama until the top of the head.
As opposed to what else are you measuring?
Wait, 1 second.
The
arm,
wings.
or hand,
Oh.
the wings.
Oh, so exactly. So the head until the top of the head. I'm
so
adding that in.
like this.
Gewaldig. So until the top of it, it's an important fact to have at this point of the Gemara because everything will click when we do it. Eser ba'ama. The kruvim were 10 amos to the head, to the top of the head. V'cheina kruva sheni. So to the second kruv. Okay, comma.
Interesting question. Why can't the Gemara just say
Right.
proving with 10 amos?
Yeah,
It's
the
the same
kruva
height,
echad,
why-
kruva sheni. Interesting. I
Usually
don't.
if they're different heights. You
It's
would
a good
say-
kasha. It's a good kasha. I don't know. The only thing that I can think of offhand, perhaps, is that the arayin it was molded out of one piece. So perhaps over there it would be uniform. Here they may have been two separate kruvim that they were placed on the floor. So you should know that both of them were the same height. But I don't
This
know.
was besides the two kruvim.
Aside the kruvim, he made kruvim that were on the floor.
So there were the two kruvim
Yes.
on Aaron and then these two.
Yes, Vitanya, and we learned in a brisa, Ma'amad Sinu, just as we find, listen to this fact over here, Ma'amad Sinu, just as we find, the base Eilamim, that in the base of Migdash, Kruvim, Bishlish Habayis, Hein Aimdim, the Kruvim, Bishlish Habayis, in a third of the space, Hein Aimdim, it occupied, it was standing in a third of the space, the Kruvim, Bishlish Habayis, Hein Aimdim, they were standing in a third of the space because we have those measurements.
Right,
30 amas high, and these were 10. The base of English was 30 amas high, and these kruvim were 10. Mishkanami, the Mishkan also kruvim b'shlish habayasin aimdim. The kruvim was standing in a third of the Mishkan. Now look what's going on. Now we're going to focus on the Mishkan. Period. Mishkan kamahave. How tall was the Mishkan? Eser amos. The Mishkan was 10 amos. The Chsiv, as the pasuk says, Eser amos oirach hakeresh. The kroshim each was 10 amos in length. Now, these kroshim were measured when they were laying on the floor. So you have this pole that it was upright when it was standing, but when it was measured 10 amos, it was measured.
10 amos.
Was it 10 amos? I'm sorry, Eser amos, right? Eser amos oirach hakeresh. So this keresh was 10 amos when it was laying, and obviously when it stood up, that made the height of the Mishkan 10 amos tall. Oh, fine. The Chsiv Eser amos oirach hakeresh, the length of the keresh of the kroshim. Kama havelahu. Now this we have to write in. How many tfachim is that? Kama havelahu? Question mark. How many tfachim is that? Right, it doesn't say tfachim, but that's what the Gemara is asking now. How many tfachim is that? That we know that. The Gemara answers shitin poishchei. That's 60 tfachim, because every amma is 6 tfachim.
But imagine this Mishkan had to be taller than 10 amos. Because we said that till the head of the kruvim was 10.
10 amos.
10 amos, but we know that the kruvim
That wasn't the
were
base of
higher.
Mikdash. That was the base of Mikdash.
The base.
Oh, the Mishkan not?
Mishkan.
Yeah, the Mishkan was smaller.
Oh.
And Shlomo Melech, when he built the Beis Mikdash, he added.
The Kruvim were on the floor. The Mishkan, they were on the Aron.
Oh, that's just it's ear space we're talking about, or it's even the
Really, the Mishkan there on the floor?
covers on top.
No, the base of Mikdash one.
Because the covers had that in
Shlomo ones were on
thick,
the
because
floor.
they were a bunch of them piled on top of it.
Mishkan,
Oh,
they were
but
on
look
the
what
Aron.
happens here.
They're on the floor. Interesting.
That's what he said.
But they didn't have this in the base of
In
Mikdash.
the Beis Mikdash, they were
Okay.
like
the
just
kruvim.
statues.
I didn't go into. We're going to it so much. The kruvim were actually they weren't a place on top of an aron. I think they were adjacent to the
They
aron.
didn't have both of them? They didn't have their own
I think
anymore?
they had the aron and next to it they had
Oh, so
the
they had
kruvim
both.
that Shlomo Melech designed. But those were 10 amos tall. And over here we're saying now. So wait. So we know the keresh is 10 amos. How many tefachim is that? Now we're determining the height of the Mishkan. Shitin Poshchei, 60 tefachim. Yeah, 60 tefachim is the height of the Mishkan. Period. Plus say kamahavi. How much is a third of that? Plus say kamahavi. How much is a third of that? Because we want to know what's a third, because that's the space that the kruvim occupied. Plus say kamahavi. How much is a third of that? Because that's where the kruvim occupied, right? The Gemara answers. Esrim Poshchei, 20 Tvachim. Okay? 20 Tvachim. Good? Now the Gemara continues explaining. Dal Asara, take away 10 the Arain from the actual Arain, right? Take away 10 Tfachim from the Arain, right? The Kruvim we know took up 20 Tfachim because it was a third. It took a third of the height. The height was 60. A third of that is 20. Take away 10 out of that 20 for the actual Arain, the box. For Kapyrus, the Arain for Kapyrus. For the Arain and the Kapyrus, which was a total of 10, that we know. Pashalu Asara, we remain with 10. Pashalu Asara, we remain with 10 Tfachim for the actual Kruvim. That right? Yeah, the Cheshbon is clear? 60. A third of that was for the whole Kruvim. 10 for the Arain. Now we're left with 10 Tfachim. Pashalu Asara, we remain with 10 Tfachim for the Kruvim. Viksiv, and it says about the Kruvim. Right? It says about the Kruvim, V'hayu hakruvim, and the Kruvim were per se kanafayim, and it says that the Kruvim were per se kanafayim. They were spread with their wings lamala, above. Soichachem, the continuing pasuk, lamala is above. Soichachem is providing shelter bichanfeim with their wings al hakapayres, on top of the Kapyrus.
Or shaking of fire means
There we see that we can have airspace.
So I want to read that pasuk one more time. Because it says about the Kruvim, Vaya Kruvim, and the Kruvim were per se kanafayim lamala, were spread with the wings lamala, above. 1 second. Look at this. Soichem, they're providing shelter bichanafayim with their wings. Ala Kapyrus on the Kapyrus. Now look at this. Period. That's end of, you can put that. That's quotes. That's end of the pasuk. Now the Gemara analyzes that pasuk. Karye Rachmana, the Torah. Now this footnote is mamish the clincher here. Karye Rachmana, and I wrote on the side. The Torah called the shelter made by the wings. That's usually right. Karye Rachmana. The Torah called the shelter made with the wings. It's 1 second. Kai Rachman is a kama. I broke this up as a kama. Kai Rachmana, the Torah called the shelter made by the wings schacha. The Torah called that schach. Look at this. Lamala me'asara, because they were higher than 10 tefachim. When the pasuk says that they were spread, their wings were spread above, that means the wings were spread above the heads. Above. Why saying above? Say the wing. If it's at the level of the head, the wings are spread. Above means above the actual kruvim. You hear that? So the wings went slightly higher than the kruvim. So 1 second. Kayi Rachmana.
They're higher than the kruvim or higher than the
higher than the head. Oh. The wings, the heads reach a height of 10 tvachim. The wings then went slightly higher than that. We're dealing with the kruvim in the Mishkan. In the Mishkan. So the Mishkan were 10 tvachim, right? So v'haya kruvim, the kruvim were per sechem afayim, spread with the wings lamala. So let's call lamala. We can even write lamala higher than their head. Sechem bechanfeim, right? Sechem bechanfeim, providing shelter with the wings ala kapyrus, on the kapyrus. Now we analyze period.
Oh, so it should be 12, so it should be more than 10.
Reb Chaim. Kai Rachmana. 1 second. Kai Rachmana. The Torah called the shelter made by the wings schacha. And now you write this in.
What does the Torah call it that?
Okay, it says lamala seichechem v'chanfeim. The word seichem, you can underline that word seichem. That's the lashon schach. So the Torah called the shelter made by the wings schacha. Why? Lamala me'asara. Because they were higher. I write this in because they were higher than 10. The Torah called them schach. Why did they get the name schach? Because they were located just on top of the head, and the head was 10 tvachim.
We learn from here.
Period. So we see from here that schach is a term used when you're sheltering above 10.
So it doesn't have to be part of the.
Exactly.
can have
So
everything.
just Rabbi, just add that in. Schach. So we see that schach is a shelter that's above 10. When you provide shelter above 10, that's what it is. Schach is a shelter above 10. That's mamish. That's the Gemara. That concludes this Gemara. Just 1 second. Let's do it. Just Reb
Schach
Chaim's.
just means a covering.
But you see that the Torah called it a covering. Remember?
No, could have said chuppah.
It-
The fact that it said
It
sukkah.
doesn't mean roof.
It could.
Could use another word. We use schach every time.
The term schach,
Chuppah.
the Torah called schach in this context. So that's what we're able to take from it. That if it's higher than 10, if the shelter is provided higher than 10, then it's called schach. Yeah, you have it down, Rabbi. So you write it down. This Gemara is crystal clear. If you just write it down, and then those little notes that makes the Gemara. V'hayu kruvim, and the kruvim were parsich and afayim, spread with their wings, soichim, providing shelter bechanfeim with the wings, ala kapyrus, on top of the kapyrus. Period. Kaye rachmana, the Torah called the shelter made by their wings schacha, schach. Lamal me'asara, because they're higher than 10 tvachim. The shelter's higher than 10 tvachim.
The kruvim themselves were 10. The heads were 10.
The head's exactly 10. Stopped at
The
10.
truth is, the heads were really 20 because the heads were 10 amas off the aron.
Oh.
The kruvim themselves were 10. The aron was 10. The aron the kapyrus. So it's where's the rye? It's 10. It's really 20 from the floor.
So I think
Rashi
because the
discusses,
pasuk says that they were schacham ala kapyrus, the pasuk says.
So
So
just
from the
looking from the
kapyrus, the kapyrus,
very good terms.
the aron and the
Chab-
kapyrus.
Chab-
the floor.
How do we know
No,
that?
the kapyrus is the
Top is top.
Rashi points out there's a gap of 10 tefachim between the.
No, that's from the top.
I was asking. It's higher than
Look,
if you
Rabbi
look
Sai-
from the floor.
If this Rabbi Sai, if this is here, this is the aron. This is the top of the aron. Oh, Gavaldik. Rabbi, so look at just words. I'm sorry. Here's the aron. This is the top of the box. This is the top of the box with the kapyrus. So the pasuk says that the kruvim were providing shelter on top of the kapyrus. So the kapyrus was at a height of 10. The heads of the kruvim were at 10, providing shelter above the kapyrus. So that's why you see that schach provided shelter for
Oh,
10.
no shaykh is to the actual kruv.
Right, exactly. We
So
just
then they could have been under. They could have been holding their wings to their feet, and it would still be above the kapyrus.
no, but how do you know it's 10 tvachim? Because the heads were 10 and the wings were
From the
higher.
floor to the top of the kruvim was 20 tvachim.
Right.
Just the
But from the kapyrus,
Which is 10 tvachim.
Rashi says.
yeah, we want to know.
Mishkan.
Well, the tops of the wings are 10 tvachim from the top of the orange.
That I understand.
Which
Well, you're
is.
saying that it's we know it because the wings are above the kapyrus.
From the kapyrus up. No, Rabbi Sai, let's have this clear.
We're talking about the gap between the top of the kapyrus and the top of the wings.
Exactly. Rabbi Sai, I'm sorry. Bro, you hear this? The gap, you hear this? The gap from the top of the kapyrus is the cover of the aron. Okay?
Head.
To the head, it was 10 tvachim. The shelter was being provided on top of the pasuk says. What does the pasuk say? Rabbi say al hakapyrus. The wings were provided. The pasuk says al hakapyrus on top of the cover. So from the cover,
higher than 10.
the actual kruvim stopped at 10. Exactly. The wings were slightly higher than the kruvim. Than the head. The wings were slightly higher than the head.
The head is 10.
The head was 10 tvachim on top. Rabbi said this is what it comes down to. The head was 10 tvachim above the kapyrus. The wings were slightly higher than that. So the wings are giving a shelter.
Was hollowness.
The hollow space, no, Givaldik, the hollow space is 10 tvachim. Yaakov, it's clear? The hollow space here, Rabbi says, 10 tvachim. From the kapyrus until the wings, we have a clear hollow space of 10 tvachim. Then the wings provide the shelter called schacha. Is that clear, Rabbi say that's clear?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Givaldik. Chaim, it's start.
No, I think we should do it again.
What?
Chaim, I want to stop now, but this is your kasha, so I'm going just 3 more lines because it's Chaim's kasha.
Wow, what a way to end the day.
Umamai, Rabbi say, Umamai they got finu. Umamai they got finu. No, they get fayu. How do we know they got fayu? That the wings, Ilove Rishayu, Kaime, were just on top of the heads. Let me read that again. Umay, how do you know they got fayu that their wings ilove rishayu, that they were just on ilove rishayu kaime, that they were just on top of the heads, which gives you a space of 10. Dilma, perhaps lahati rishayu kaime. Maybe the wings were just at the height equal to the heads. Lahati rishayu, equal to the heads kaime. They were standing. There they were. Dilma, perhaps lahade rishayu kaime. Maybe they were at equal height to the head.
Then you wouldn't have hollow.
And then you don't have a hollow space, exactly.
And
then you don't have a hollow space.
Now we're back to it.
Exactly. Yeah, question mark. That's a question mark. I just want to get to the dot because this whole Gemara is one piece. Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, he answers, Lamala ksiv, period. It says Lamala, the wings were above. So it means they were above the head. Lamala ksiv, which means above the head. The Ema de Midli Tuva. Maybe they were much higher, Rab Chaim. Maybe they were much higher. Very nice, they're above. But maybe they're 10 tvachim higher, which maybe the wings were smart. And therefore, in order to be a schach, you need to have 15 tvachim of airspace. Umima, the Ema de Midli Tuva. Midli means Tuva. Maybe they were much higher. The Midli Tuva, they were much higher than the Kruvim. Now all of a sudden, wait, you need to have 15 tvachim of airspace to be called schach. Question mark. The Gemara says, Miksiv lamala lamala. Does it say lamala lamala, which means very high? Out on the side. It says, yeah, Gavaldes.
Lamala, it's funny. You say when you're going lamala lamala, this is where it comes.
Lamala.
Never heard that expression.
So you never mentioned someone you should go lamala. Lamala is just higher.
Lamala lamala.
Lamala lamala. You don't care.